I finally finished Tears of the Kingdom, and it was simultaneously one of the funnest games I've ever played and one of the most tedious games I've ever played. Don't get it twisted, overall I absolutely love the game, and in a year that is swarmed with so many amazing games, it's my current game of the year. But that won't stop me from being critical. The criticisms come from a place of love in hopes that the next game can get even better. Let's get to the review. I'm going to split this into two parts, a spoiler-free section and a spoiler section. The chapters below will let you know when spoilers start and also put a big warning on the screen when I'm about to go into spoilers, and put a time code for you to skip to. Also, side note, I will be comparing this game to Breath of the Wild often, and talking a bit about Breath of the Wild, and I will not withhold any Breath of the Wild spoilers, because it's 6 years old by now. Where does the time go? It's hard for me to talk about story and characters without going into spoilers, and I have a lot to say, so let me not waste your time. If you're avoiding spoilers, you're probably just looking for general impressions anyway to decide if you should play. I'll tell you straight, I like the story well enough. It's not going to blow you away, but it's passable as a means to drive the player forward. I enjoyed the memories in this and Breath of the Wild well enough. I think both have things that are really cool in them, but that being said, they're both pretty bare bones. And it's weird to see a memory that's late in the chronological order, and then you go back to a memory that was supposed to happen earlier. While there are a few things about the memories I enjoyed, you're probably not going to be walking away from them saying, "Wow, what a great story, almost as good as Lord of the Rings." But you're also probably not going to walk away from them thinking they are terrible. They're just fine, and that works well enough for the kind of game Tears of the Kingdom is. If a good story is something you really value in a game, don't go into this one expecting too much. One part of the story that I think is pretty bad though is some of the main quest stuff. Every dungeon ends with a copy-paste cutscene where different characters read from the same script that other characters read from. It's very bizarre. Some parts of the main quest are actually pretty cool, but that part definitely left something to be desired. I don't feel too differently about the characters, they're mostly the same as they were in Breath of the Wild. The ones that changed and got better between Breath of the Wild and this game are Tulin, Purah, and maybe Zelda. Also, Ganondorf is much cooler than Calamity Ganon. Again, avoiding spoilers, let me not waste your time. The combat is basically identical, but you can do some neat things with the new abilities. I'll talk about each ability in the spoiler section, but overall I think they're cool, but not having stasis and remote bombs makes me cry a little. You get abilities similar to the champion abilities, but I'll say it right now, I kind of hate how you have to use them. More on that in the spoiler section when I can show footage, since it contains spoilers. Also, only one of them is really useful and the others are only useful in rare scenarios. Last one you get is cool though. What about dungeons? They're a lot better than Divine Beasts, I'll tell you that for free. Specifically in terms of atmosphere, music, and bosses. I'll go over each dungeon individually in the spoiler section. Puzzles can leave something to be desired though. I think it's a step in the right direction for dungeons, but they're still a far cry from almost every other 3D Zelda dungeon in my opinion. If they keep going with this style for Zelda, I'd like to see more dungeons than, just a few in the game. Or at the very least larger dungeons with more traditional style puzzles. It's a little funny to me that Ocarina of Time is going to be 25 years old this year and yet has far better dungeons than Tears of the Kingdom. Funny, but also saddening. What about the shrines? I like them much more than the shrines in Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild had those gimmicky shrines with gyro puzzles, and a lot of shrines just didn't end up being that difficult. Then you have the shrines with the little robot fella that you just fight, and by the time you get a handle on how to fight them, they become piss easy. The shrines in Tears of the Kingdom offer some really cool physics puzzles that I definitely enjoyed. Not all shrines are made equal though, and some are so damn easy you can tell what to do the moment you set foot in the shrine. And then some make me scratch my damn head, and then I find some cheesy way to solve it that feels unintended. Overall, I like the shrines more, and I did far more of them than I did when I played Breath of the Wild, which may be due to how easy they are to get to now with the increased mobility from Zonai devices and the towers that shoot you into the sky. They can start feeling repetitive though, and if you ever find yourself becoming bored or frustrated with the shrines, ignore them until you get an itch for them. You'll have a better time than if you try to force yourself to keep doing them. Speaking of increased mobility though, the last thing I want to mention in terms of gameplay is exploration. Exploring is easier and quicker than Breath of the Wild due to Zonai devices, the new powers, and the towers that shoot you into the sky. And thank God for that. If I had to re-climb every mountain in the game again to get to different areas, I'd cry. Exploring feels nice, and getting to explore the sky can be really fun. However, the depths are another thing. I kind of hate the depths, and I'll talk about why in the spoiler section, but I'll just say this. I liked it at first, and I thought it was really cool and creepy, but after deciding to go for every light route, I realized how empty and boring it really is. More on that later. Overall, the gameplay is more the same from Breath of the Wild with some new additions to spice things up. The biggest glow-ups are the dungeons and shrines, but the dungeons still aren't the best the series has to offer, and the shrines can get monotonous, but they're still cool. To end the spoiler-free section, I will ask one simple question to myself: do I recommend the game? Yes, I do. If you're a big Zelda fan, play it. There's a lot of callbacks and really neat things for Zelda fans in this game. If you have a mild interest in the game, I recommend giving it a go. You'll probably have fun. If you played Breath of the Wild and love that game, you've probably already decided to play this one, but if you haven't, go for it. You won't be disappointed. Now, if you hated Breath of the Wild, you might want to avoid this game because it is very similar. I think it improves on what Breath of the Wild did enough to where you might enjoy it, but maybe ask a friend if you can borrow it because you don't want to end up throwing $70 away, and God knows this game will never go on goddamn sale because Nintendo is Nintendo. Now it's time to get into spoilers. This section is probably going to be long. I have a lot to praise the game for on one hand, and on my other hand, some shit to complain about. Skip to the time code on screen if you want to avoid spoilers and just want to see my rating. Here we go. Let's jump back into talking about the story and characters. For me, story is something that can drive an entire game for me. If the gameplay is just decent, I won't mind as long as the story is good. Does this game deliver on the story? Not really, but the rest of the game made up for it, and the story still had some highlights. First, the memories. I thought it was really cool that Zelda turned herself into a dragon in order to restore the Master Sword over thousands of years. It's a more interesting plot point than anything they did in Breath of the Wild. It was kind of cool that Zelda was struggling in Breath of the Wild. That gave her character some room to grow, and I love when a character grows, but she spends a majority of the memories struggling and not really changing until the very end where she struggles no more. But then she doesn't do anything else in the actual main game until you see her at the end and she just says, "Do you still remember me, Wink?" In Tears of the Kingdom, she seems a bit more proactive, willing to do this sacrifice in order to save Hyrule and give Link a fighting chance. When she turned into a dragon, that made me weirdly really sad as well. She gave up her sense of self in order to turn into an immortal beast just for the sake of the kingdom, and that is pretty darn sad. I mean, it does get reversed by the end of the game, but I don't really care. Did anyone actually expect Nintendo to keep Zelda as a dragon forever? You'd have to be a damn fool. I like that Rauru and Sonia used their weird magic to turn Zelda back into a human. At least it felt somewhat believable, even though Minoru spends every memory talking about how it can never be reversed, but you know, and then it just gets reversed anyway. I do wish Nintendo had the balls to keep Zelda as a dragon, but it ended up leading to a really good moment that I'll touch on later, so you know what, all's well that ends well. Overall, I enjoyed some aspects of the memories. There's room to argue that Breath of the Wild did them better, but I think I like these ones just a little bit more. Now, there is one thing about these cutscenes that I absolutely hate. Link's reaction to them, or should I say, lack of reaction to anything at all in the entire damn game. Hey Link, you just discovered that Zelda, whom you probably love, right? Turned into a dragon and lost her humanity and sense of self. How do you feel about that? Oh, what's that? Your expression is the same as always? Amazing. Hey Link, you just landed on top of Dragon Zelda and pulled out the Master Sword. Any thoughts at all? No? Oh, I see. Hey Link, Zelda was saved with the power of awesome Rauru and Sonia love. And you caught her while she was falling from the sky. Now she's on the ground, happy to be back. Are you going to show emotion? Are you going to cry tears of relief that Zelda's back and not a dragon forever and ever? No? You're gonna have the same expression that's been on your face during every event in the game? Okay, cool. That adds so much to the game. I'm so glad Link has no emotion. It really heightens the emotional moments the story has to offer. What the fuck? It's just so bizarre to me. Why is Toon Link the most expressive Link in the entire series? Remember when he was happy to see his sister in the Forsaken Fortress? Remember when he was sad to leave his home? Remember when he showed emotion like a person? Hell, I swear to God, young Link has more emotion than this Link does. One of the only times Link changes his expression in this game is when he is cooking. Why? So many moments would be better if Link just showed any sort of emotion other than slightly angry. I don't know if it's crazy for me to be so annoyed by this, but I was just waiting for Link to look happy, or relieved, or even shed a tear when he was on the ground, reunited with Zelda at the end of the game. But he just had the same face as always! Why? Okay, tangent over. Let's resume talking about the story. I enjoy the memories in this game a little bit more than the memories in Breath of the Wild. But what about the rest of the story? Well, you have to go around to the same 4 locations you visited in Breath of the Wild in order to talk to an NPC, who leads you to another NPC, who leads you to do some shit in order to unlock the temple. You finish the temple, and then are greeted with a copy-paste cutscene where the old sage tells you about the imprisoning war, and they use almost identical lines. It's really bizarre that this long-ass cutscene is at the end of every dungeon and plays out in exactly the same damn way every time. After the second time, I'm clocking out. By the time I saw it the 4th and final time, I wasn't even watching the cutscene, I was looking at my phone. It's just boring. Every area you go to, they see Zelda, and then everyone stands still and lets Zelda walk away, and they say, "Where did she go?" And then after the temple, they say, I'm not sure that was really Zelda. Like, it's just so repetitive. And it gets even more fucked up if you did all the memories early on like me, and you know that Zelda is the light dragon, and Link just stands there like a dope and says nothing. The unique spin on each area is cool. I really like that the Gyptos have taken over and you have to defend the Gerudo City from them. That's cool. The marbled rock is weird, but it piques your interest. The sludge has a visible impact on the Zora and is integrated with the gameplay well. Then the Ritos get more snow. Lots of snow. That one was kind of meh. And dealing with these problems is the unique thing each area has to offer, but it's just kind of neat and doesn't really affect my enjoyment of the story or the game either way. When you take away the small things that make each area unique, it's easy to see how repetitive each area is. Breath of the Wild kinda had this too. You just go to each area, talk to an important NPC who helps you get to the Divine Beast. The story is a means to an end, and on its own doesn't engage me as well as other game stories can. This isn't that important to everyone, but for me, if you're going to put a large focus on the story in your game, with all these memories and tons of dialogue, at least try a little harder. I understand there are a lot of things that took the developers' focus, like the new abilities and new areas of the game, but it is not a wrong statement to say the story is lacking. Yes, I think it is better than Breath of the Wild by a small amount, but that does not make it a good story. It's not bad, but it's not particularly good either. Except for a few aspects that I think shine, like Zelda's decision to become a dragon and sacrifice who she is, only for it to be reversed, but oh well. But overall, the story is just okay. It's not blowing me away, but it's not making me puke either. Now let's talk about characters. Impa is in the game for like 2 scenes and then isn't relevant ever again. Purah stands in the same spot for the entire game, but I think she's better than the weird lolly she was in Breath of the Wild. She's by far the hottest character too, but that's neither here nor there. Sidon, Riju, and Yunobo are practically the same as ever, but I do like them a lot. Tulin is the most different. He turned into a little cutie pie instead of the strange baby abomination he was in Breath of the Wild, and I enjoy his character quite a bit. There's tons of side characters, but none of them are blowing my socks off. There's some new additions like Sidon's fiance, who's pretty good, but again, she's not making my nuts explode or anything. She's just pretty good, and that's about all. Taro is a new addition, and he's decent, but he's not in the main quest very much. I don't know if there's a bunch of side quests with him or anything, but he didn't blow me away. Paya is in the game for 5 seconds, which is a little disappointing. Again, there may be a side quest with her, but I didn't do it. Rauru is cool, I like him a fair bit, and I love his design. Sonia's decent, but kind of lackluster for me. Minoru is great, I love her. I like Zelda a little bit more than I did in Breath of the Wild, but not by much. Ganondorf looks damn cool. He's almost a real character unlike Calamity Ganon, which was just an evil, gross monster. Matt Mercer did a great job with him, and I just have to ask, why do they keep making Ganondorf sexier and sexier? Anyway, the characters are about on par with Breath of the Wild. Some are a cut above, but then you realize Tears of the Kingdom is missing Cass, which is a damn crying shame. Here's my tier list of all the characters for your enjoyment. Please feel free to disagree, this is pretty subjective after all. Let's talk about the new abilities first. In Breath of the Wild, you had Stasis, Magnesis, Remote Bombs, and Cryonis. In this game, you have Ultra Hand, Ascend, Fuse, Recall, and Auto Build. Cryonis was pretty hit or miss, way too situational. Ultra Hand is basically Magnesis on crack. The only ones I'm sad to see gone are Stasis and Remote Bombs, but it's not such a big deal. Let's talk about each ability and Tears of the Kingdom individually. Ultra Hand lets you pick up any object and glue it to another object. Very useful for making weird shit and making useful things with Zonai devices. My biggest issue with it is how it sometimes lags the fuck out of the game. I wish the Switch wasn't such an outdated piece of crap. Another issue with it is that it's sometimes hard to place things exactly how you want to, which can be a little annoying. Overall though, I think it's a really cool ability and probably the one I had the most fun using. Fuse lets you attach objects to your weapon, your shield, and your arrows. There's some really cool and fun combos you can make with these, like turning your shield into a skateboard. It's a bit annoying how Zonai devices destroy the durability of your shield so damn fast though. Like, why does holding a flame emitter for 15 seconds make my entire shield explode? You're better off just holding a damn flame emitter or whatever Zonai device you want to use with Ultra Hand. When it comes to your weapons, however, there's a lot of really fun combinations you can make with Zonai devices and other things, like putting a cannon on your sword. It doesn't break too fast, so you can have a good amount of fun with it. I still wish Zonai devices didn't break your weapon at all, but oh well. Just find another one. Usually though, you're probably just gonna want to use Fuse as a damage booster for your weapons. Sort by Fuse attack power and choose one of the things at the top. If you need a weapon to break rocks with, Fuse your highest mace-like object. The magic staves are cool, but the best one is the Sapphire Rod by far. The other ones just aren't as useful, and you're probably better off saving that slot for a real weapon. When it comes to your bow, there's a lot you can do with it, but holy hell is actually attaching something to your arrow so goddamn annoying. Here's a one-row menu. Now scroll through your 5,000 materials one at a time to find the one you want to test out. Okay, thanks. Why wasn't this something brought up during their polish that they delayed the game for? Hello? Most of the arrows that you make were already arrows in Breath of the Wild that didn't require a massive menu. There's like 2 new arrows to make, a homing arrow and an arrow that goes fast. Fuse is one of the most mixed new abilities for me. It's just a means to an end most of the time where you make your weapon as powerful as it can be. It's one of the most used and necessary abilities in the game, but it's not as fun to use as Ultra Hand, because the most fun things you can do with it cause your stuff to break really fast, or just aren't that useful in terms of damage output. But you know, you can still just have fun if you want to. Ascend is pretty awesome. It's useful for exploration, it's useful against certain enemies, and I found myself using it so often to skip a bunch of stuff. It's used in some cool puzzles like the couple of towers you have to ascend up to from a cave in order to access. I love Ascend, and whenever I play other games I find myself looking at a platform and instinctively wanting to use Ascend on it, even though it's not an option, and I go, oh man, wish I had Ascend. Definitely a cool ability. Recall I did not find myself using as much as perhaps I should have. I used it when I was a lonely man with very few battery cells in order to hover my plane in air while I waited for my batteries to recharge. But outside of that and some puzzles that require it, I did not use it very often. You can use it to send rocks back at enemies, but it's kind of a waste of time for how little damage it usually does. It's probably better to just avoid it and run up to an enemy and hit them to death. In the shrines that use Recall, it's very fun, but while just exploring the open world, I find myself using it very little. Let me know down in the comments if you found any particularly cool uses for it. Last, auto build. This is something I got near the end of the game because I just happened to not go into the depths in the right area during my mini forays while playing. But man, it sure is useful. I didn't really care too much for a lot of the pretty useless schema stones I was given, but there are some useful ones. I mostly just use it to make a plane a bunch of times while going from light route to light route in the depths and when traveling long distances in the overworld. Although I would have just made a damn hover bike if I knew about it since it doesn't break like my damn plane. So yeah, auto build is pretty cool, though the Zonite cost on some things can be a little hefty if you want to skip supplying your own parts. Alright, abilities over. Now let's talk about Sage abilities. Wow, most of these are way worse than the champion abilities in Breath of the Wild, even if they are more unique. My biggest gripe is that with the exception of Tulin when you're in the air, and Yunobo when you're riding something, you have to walk up to the Gormless Freak Sage and click A on them, and it's A for all of them. A button you already use for everything else, like picking up items. Why? In Breath of the Wild, the champion abilities were all bound to different buttons, and that was just fine. Sages in this game get in each other's way, so it can be hard to click on one, especially if you want to use their ability in the heat of combat. And sometimes the stupid sages are running away from you, and you have to chase them down to click on them. and they will sometimes get in the way of picking up items. There's so many times where I accidentally activate a Sage ability instead of picking up an item. Why is Tulin the only one you can't cancel? Is there a way to cancel him without using his damn gust? I have to turn around and point it somewhere else just to continue picking up my items because his gust is going to blow them to kingdom come. So what are the abilities anyway? Tulin gives you a horizontal boost in the air, which is nice. Rivali's Gale was overall better for exploration, and you can just make a plane or a hover bike and not really need to worry about Tulin's ability too much. But it still remains useful and can get you to places really quickly when navigating around. It's the most useful Sage ability, and it's just a horizontal worse Rivali's Gale. Okay. Unobo's ability lets him shoot forward, which is cool and very useful in the Fire Temple area, but not super amazing in the rest of the game. In most cases, you can just accomplish anything he could offer for you anyway. He's more useful as a line to show me where I'm pointing when flying a plane around. Riju's ability is just worse than Urbosa's ability. You have to click on her, which is annoying, then she has to charge the range up, then you have to shoot an arrow to hit one specific spot, and if Riju gets hit or knocked down at any point, the whole thing resets, which is so annoying. Sidon's ability is neat, sure, and it can help navigate spicy hot areas, but if you explored the spicy areas before doing the Zora quests, well, guess what, he's pointless now. He's barely useful in the water temple except for hitting the switches and making the boss hittable. It's just a very underwhelming ability, and not one worth running over to his gormless apparition to activate. Lastly, there's Minoru's ability, which is just a mech. I'll admit it, it's really damn cool, but his combat prowess is unfortunately low. You're better off just being Link and attacking enemies, but it's still damn fun to ride around the mech, and being able to walk in gloom without taking damage is a nice boon. Overall, these abilities are just kinda whatever to me. The Breath of the Wild abilities are just straight up better. Mipha is a full heal fairy, which is nice. Daruni gives you super protection, which breaks fast usually, but it's still nice to have. Urbosa is a big damage AoE, which is obviously useful. And Rivali's Gale is just straight up the most useful thing of all time. I love it. Even if you can't achieve the same effect with rockets in Tears of the Kingdom, shut up. Rivali's Gale is awesome. And the best part is that you can activate these abilities when you want to, using specific buttons. Tulin is the only useful one in Tears of the Kingdom, and even then its usefulness isn't that great when you consider everything you can do with Zonai devices. The one thing I like about the sages is that they follow you around and help you fight, but also I kind of freaking hate it. When you get all 5 sages, their bodies just block the damn screen and I can't see shit. I can't even tell that they're helping out most of the time unless there's a bunch of enemies that they distract. In fighting one-on-one, the only one that's super useful is again Tulin, because he'll occasionally snipe an enemy, which will allow you to go in for a follow-up attack. When fighting one-on-one with everyone, they just block the screen and can make it pretty laggy too. Thank you, Nintendo, for making the Switch a piece of crap. It's cool that they follow you around, but they often get in the way and their abilities aren't too useful, but I don't want to turn them off because they can help out in fights very occasionally. And I don't want to bother turning them off and on again, just for their few useful moments. Let's talk about shrines real quick. I don't have much to add that I didn't already say in the spoiler-free section. There's like 150 some shrines, I did 116 of them and I have no real motivation to finish the rest, even though I'm pretty close. I was actually losing interest around the 90 shrine mark, but kept going because I would pass by some shrines, and if I had 2 blessings lad, I felt like I needed to get 2 more just to get a new heart container. I didn't want to have a non-zero amount, it bothered me for some odd reason. I did enjoy the shrines more than the Breath of the Wild shrines, like I said, but after doing so many, you just kind of get bored of them. I don't know why there's so many of them other than to pad out the game. I do like that the shrines are connected to the light routes. It makes it so you can find one or the other, but also the fact that they're connected annoys the piss out of me, because there's so many goddamn fucking light routes. It took literal hours to run around the depths collecting them all, and for what? To get some amiibo costumes and fight the same enemies I can fight in the overworld, except this time they make it so I can't heal, which is freaking annoying? Thanks. I guess the depths are useful for crystallized charges, but I'll talk about that in a moment. Overall, shrines are better than Breath of the Wild, but after a while I lose my motivation to continue doing them, and I've had my fill of puzzles. Now let's talk about the 3 main areas of the game: the sky, the ground, and the depths. The sky is pretty cool, there's some neat things you can do here and there, and being able to fly around and dive to the ground is pretty fun, and can be really useful for getting around. There's nothing that blows me away though. The best things to come out of the addition of the sky are the areas leading up to the Wind Temple and Water Temple. The ground area is very similar to Breath of the Wild. I mean, it is the same world after all. There are wells to explore now. I enjoyed exploring the wells for the first half of my time playing the game, but I then realized that the wells are pretty bare bones, and with the exception of a few, don't really do much for me. Some are really boring and tiny. Caves are cool, but again, there isn't anything in them that is knocking my socks off and making me uncontrollably shit my pants. There are some cool new additions like the holes leading to the depths. Terrytown is cool, most of it remains the same with a few new additions and some remixes here and there. It's not exactly the same world as Breath of the Wild, and I think it's distinct enough to not annoy most people, including me, but I can see why some people might shake their head and say it's too much of the same because some areas are so similar. Now, the depths. I have mixed feelings about the depths, but mostly negative feelings. First of all, there's too many damn light routes. Yes, I understand that they're connected to the shrines, but they didn't have to be. And while I'm at it, there are too many damn shrines anyway. It's tedious as hell to get all the light routes, and the only way I kept my sanity was to listen to podcasts and other videos while just flying around the depths going from light route to light route. I wanted to get them all. After all, I may want to do stuff in the depths, and it really helps being able to freaking see. Navigating the depths without light routes is tedious and annoying because it's so freaking dark. I found the full miner's outfit really easily, and guess what? It does fuck all. Wow, I can see 3 feet around me. That's really helpful. Thank God for auto build. I was able to make a plane and just fly around with a bright bloom attached to my plane so that I could see if I was going to run into a damn cliff as I went from light route to light route. Also, what's even the point of the depths? One point is to get crystallized charges from our batteries, but you don't need the full 2 stacks of batteries to do anything in the game. So wait, the point is nothing unless you just want to have fun? Let's be real, you don't need to max out your batteries to do fun stuff like fly around. A few batteries and you're good. Once you have a good amount, there's no reason to go to the depths ever again. You have to go there for some main quests, but you don't really need to do any of the depths exploration prior to that at all. The other purpose of the depths is to get amiibo gear. I admit, I like that you can get the amiibo gear, but this is not a selling point of the depths, especially when the best amiibo gear, the Fierce Deity set, is a part of a questline on the ground level. If you know me, you know I love OOT. I looked up where to get the OT set and immediately beelined for them and then got the rest way later, just because I could. Is it cool that I can get Majora's Mask and Midna's helmet? Yes. Does this make the depths good? Hell no. They could have put these items anywhere. The depths look the same everywhere you go. The enemies are the same everywhere you go. They recycle bosses in the depths, and your reward is some crap like 100 crystallized charges for fighting the same boss you already fought. Who cares? The depths could be so cool and fascinating and creepy. Instead, it's just a boring area that's annoying to explore unless you get all the light routes, with the same enemies pasted everywhere. It's a big ass ocean that's a centimeter deep. The best part about the depths was the Koga fights, which were hilariously easy, but at least Koga has a funny voice and a good boss theme. Okay, let's get into the real shit, the dungeons. My biggest gripe with Breath of the Wild was that the divine beasts were crap, doo-doo garbage. I'm happy to say that most of the dungeons in this game are way better than the divine beasts. I will talk about each dungeon one by one in the order I did them in. First, the Wind Temple. The game kind of pushes you towards this dungeon first, and I had so much cold resistance food that I thought, what the hell, let's go for it. Climbing up to the temple with Tulin was really damn fun. The Wind Temple itself was pretty straightforward once you familiarized yourself with the area, but it was still enjoyable to complete. Golgara, while a pretty easy boss, absolutely blew me away with its boss theme. Probably my favorite boss theme in the game. It goes so incredibly hard, I was shitting my pants while listening to it. The next dungeon I did was the Lightning Temple. This is my favorite dungeon from the game. The lead up to it was pretty good. The Gibdos are damn freaky, and defending the city from them was actually really fun. It wasn't that fun to fly around to the pillars and activate them in order to raise the temple from the ground, but it wasn't that big of a deal. The temple itself had probably the best puzzles of any dungeon. They were fun to do and pretty dang cool to boot. Queen Gibdo was actually pretty hard for me at this point because I only grabbed a couple of hearts, and then was focusing on maxing out my stamina wheel since most of the game is just running around. So I did end up dying one time, but I managed to get her down my second try and it's pretty fun. A truly spooky boss. The next dungeon I did was the Fire Temple. Going up the mountain and shooting enemies with Yunobo was really fun, and flying around Death Mountain and fighting Moragia was really fun too. I thought it was pretty cool that you went into the depths to do the Fire Temple. At least the depths were good for something this time. The Fire Temple itself, though, I wasn't too impressed with. Navigating it was a little annoying, and I didn't really know what to do with the minecart rails sometimes, and ended up just cheesing the hell out of it by climbing up and gliding to the areas I needed to go to because at this point I had maxed my stamina. Marble Goma was incredibly easy. I only had to attack it 2 times, once before the phase shift and once after, because I had powerful weapons by this point, but it was still a neat boss either way. And then I did the water temple, of course. I was really let down by this dungeon. The dungeon itself isn't too different from what you were already doing prior to entering it. The best part about the water temple is the pre-dungeon stuff, like diving into the water and raising the water level in order to access the panel. That felt much more water temple-y than the actual water temple. The water temple itself is really small. Takes not too long to do it all, and Sidon's power isn't very useful except for activating the switches and fighting the boss. The boss, by the way, was extremely easy at this point in the game for me. I absolutely demolished it with the few ingredients I had at this point, which was silver Lionel horns. Definitely my least favorite dungeon. I guess the next one would technically be Hyrule Castle, yeah. It wasn't as cool as it was in Breath of the Wild, I'll say that outright. It's really easy to navigate around with Zonai stuff, so you basically just run from point A to point B to wherever fake Zelda is, and then fight some enemies that you can probably destroy at this point. And then you do get a really cool scene with Ganondorf and the new sages, and then you fight Phantom Ganon, which is a very cool boss fight. I was worried because I was like, but I already fought him when I killed the Gloom Hands. But I was happy that this iteration had much more to it than that. The music was nice, but not nearly as good as the Hyrule Castle music in Breath of the Wild, at least in my opinion. The next dungeon would be the Construct Factory and Spear Temple. I'll lump them together since they're basically connected. This dungeon is kind of lame, but the boss fight makes up for it. The lead up is unlocking Thunderhead Isles with the help of Taro, where Link gets a sexy crop top, and then you unlock the area leading to the depths. The Thunderhead Isles were okay, not amazing, but they were fine. Once arriving in the depths, you build a robot body for Minoru by going to 4 areas and solving some puzzles. Half of the puzzles I didn't care to actually solve, and I didn't even know where to begin. It was just 100 times easier to cheese the hell out of it by building a flying contraption, probably a plane. You then take the robot a ways away towards the Spear Temple. This part is pretty cool, but Minoru's ability felt a little weak to me. It was still really fun though. You then get to the Spirit Temple, which is less of a temple and more of a boss arena, where Minoru's ability finally gets to shine. This boss fight is one of the coolest in the game for sure. I just had a smile on my face while kicking this robot's ass. Truly a good boss fight. Then the final, quote, dungeon would be the Hyrule Castle Depths, which is pretty annoying. There's a lot of gloom crap everywhere, and at one point you're unable to use your sage abilities, so you have to deal with the gloom. No writing on Minoru, sorry. It's easier to just skip past most of the enemies. Why bother fighting a Lionel? Just run past it, bro. You then get to the big army fight where you fight 1,000,000 enemies with your buddies, and that part is pretty damn cool. They then hold off the bosses, which you'd have to fight if you skipped some temples. Thank God. Then you face Ganondorf. And unlike Calamity Ganon, you don't delete half of his health bar before the fight begins. Ganondorf truly feels like a threat, and I had a little bit of trouble trying to predict his attacks because I am stupid. But it was still thrilling to fight him anyway. And he looks so damn cool. Way better than Calamity Ganon in my opinion. You then fight the Demon Dragon, which again way better than Beast Ganon, and a way more impactful moment. Zelda actively helps you out during the fight in her dragon form. Yes, it's just as mindlessly easy as Beast Ganon, but it's definitely more engaging with the diving in the sky. A really cool end of the game. Another thing about the dungeons I need to mention is the dynamic music that gets more awesome the further you go into the dungeon. I really enjoyed that. The music goes crazy in this game, and it adds so much to the dungeons when they have themed music. Breath of the Wild also had dynamic dungeon music, and some of those songs are good, but the dungeons in this game are more unique, and the music in them is more unique as well, as it is made to fit the atmosphere of each dungeon, which adds a lot to the feel of these dungeons. The music is also just straight up better as well. The boss music is also cut above Breath of the Wild, which had very similar themes for each boss. And speaking of bosses, the fact that each boss is very distinct is something I really love. Another thing that was missing from Breath of the Wild, where each boss was a different flavored Ganon robot thing. In this game, the bosses are imposing and damn cool. Some more than others. There is something I don't really like about the dungeons though, and that's that they all follow the same pattern. Use the ability on the 4 or so switches and then fight the boss. The puzzles that make up the dungeon give them their own flavor, but the fact that each dungeon is the same formula is a little disappointing. Not a super deal breaker, but just a little disappointing. So that's the gameplay summed up, all my gripes and all my praises. Now the last 2 things I want to talk about are my final remaining peeves and my final remaining praises. I'll start with the peeves because I want to end on a positive note because I am overall positive on the game and kind of love it. Koroks are back and they are just as whatever as ever. It's nice to be able to upgrade my inventory, but the Koroks themselves are not very interesting to find. The addition of the Koroks they have to bring to their friend is nice, but it can be a little tedious and time consuming for just 2 seeds, especially considering how quickly the cost of further inventory upgrades becomes. The best part about Koroks is the Korok torture people have done. That stuff is pretty funny. Another peeve is how weirdly disconnected the story seems to be. For example, I found the Master Sword pretty early because 2 of the earliest things I did was max my stamina and explore the entire map. So I got all the memories quite quickly, and because my stamina was maxed, I was able to easily pull the Master Sword. Then, the last thing I did before going to the Construct Factory and finishing the game was to go to the Korok Forest and meet the Deku Tree, who exists to give me a boring memory and to tell me to find the Master Sword. But oh wait, I already had the Master Sword. Okay, thanks Deku Tree, you are useless. And I could already talk to Hetsu and Lookout Landing, so him being there didn't mean anything to me. The only good thing to come out of the Korok Forest was the shrines, where you do a little task or puzzle for the Koroks in order to unlock them. That was nice, but not worth the trip. The Korok Forest is basically pointless in Tears of the Kingdom. It was much more useful in Breath of the Wild, which is really a shame because it's one of the most memorable areas and one of my favorite areas from Breath of the Wild. You'd think that they would do something more with it. Another really big peeve I have that is pretty silly is that the cross-dressing Gerudo outfit did not make a return. Yes, you can get cute outfits like the charged armor and the frostbite armor, but they do not even come close to the Gerudo outfit. I really question why this wasn't brought back, despite it being probably the most popular set from Breath of the Wild. It would have been extremely easy to add a vendor in Gerudo City or that little oasis that sells the outfit, or make the person that gave it to Link in Breath of the Wild return and offer it to Link for a sum of money, I don't know. So strange that they reused every other possible outfit from Breath of the Wild, but did not include the insanely popular Gerudo outfit. Brings a true tear to my eye. It's not actually that big of a deal, but for some reason it kind of annoyed me. Another peeve is how the game can get very grindy. Want to upgrade your armor so you don't get one-shot by almost every enemy? Well, better get to collecting some random shit all over the world. Good God. I don't usually like to cheat in games, but holy crap, I'm glad there's still a dupe method in the updated version of the game. I duped a ton of crap because I was just annoyed by the endless grinding in the game. Want to upgrade your batteries so that you can have fun with Zonite machines? Run around the boring depths mining rocks for Zonite to buy crystallized charges, or find crystallized charges by fighting the same bosses you already fought, or some tough enemies like Lionels. Thank God for duping. I duped a bunch of large Zonite so I could just go to all the mines and buy the large crystallized charges. Is it cheating? Yes. Am I sorry? No. A lot of the side quests in the game give you a minor reward and require you to collect some random crap, which may require some grinding. What am I playing? A damn 2000s MMO? What the hell is going on here? Once again, thank God for duping. This last peeve will segue into my final praises about the game, and that peeve is the fact that the side content is not all that interesting. Like I just said, a lot of it requires grinding, and even if they don't, they give me very little motivation to complete them. You have to do a big old side quest just to get the froggy armor, since slip resistance potions do fuck all unless they're level 3. Why not just find a place to use Ascend or strap a rocket to your shield? No need to deal with slippy surfaces most of the time. So what's the point of the froggy armor, and why do I have to do a giant side quest for them? A lot of the side quests just feel like padding to make the game longer. I'm positive there are a few gems in the rough out there, but most side quests do not make me want to even begin them because they just seem so boring. They don't really give you anything that interesting, and they often require a time investment. I found myself ignoring the main quest for most of my playthrough because I was exploring the world and doing random crap I stumbled upon, but at a certain point I found myself feeling more and more bored with the game, which is when I realized I needed to focus on what I actually have fun with, which was the main quest stuff. I had collected enough shrines, I had unlocked all the towers, thus revealing the map. I had found the light roots, thus shining a light on how bad the depths is. So I said, fuck this, fuck these side quests, time to focus on the main quest. I was getting to the point where I just wanted the game to end because it felt like there's so much random busy work padding out the game everywhere. I don't want to play this one game for the rest of my life. There are so many other games I want to play. A lot of amazing games have come out this year, and a lot are still to come, and I can't be tied down to this one damn game. And this is kind of a problem in every Zelda game. Side content is usually not that interesting and are just a means to an end to get like a heart piece or something. But some games manage to do side quests just right, like Majora's Mask. There's probably a few good side quests in the game that are actually interesting and funny and cool or whatever. But I had reached a point of satisfaction with the side content in this game and decided to just complete the main quest, which brings me to the segue of my final praises with Tears of the Kingdom. My final praise is that I enjoyed doing the main quest, and I really enjoyed the ending of the game. I think the best way to play this game, at least for me, would have been to get all the towers because I enjoy doing that. Do all the shrines I ran across, explore only a tiny bit of the depths, enough to do the fire temple, the construct factory, and to get auto build, and then just focus on the main quest. The side content is not that interesting or fun, at least for me. Cece's hat? Who cares? It's kind of ugly. Why do I need to do all these Hateno quests just to watch a mayoral election I don't care about so I can get this damn hat? The only use for Hateno is the damn dye shop, but the main quest, which the devs obviously put the most work into since it's the content that will be done the most commonly, was pretty damn good. The main quests make for a really good Zelda experience. I'll admit it, I cried playing the game. Yeah, go ahead and laugh, asshole. I don't think I have ever cried playing a Zelda game in my entire life, but this game got tears flowing down my face. I don't know if I'm just more prone to crying the older I get. I cry at a lot of sad or emotional stories these days, and I'm not really afraid to let the waterworks come. I cried watching Guardians 3, that's for damn sure. The moments in this game that I teared up at were the memory where Zelda becomes a dragon. I thought it was just a really beautiful yet sad moment. I was also in tears during basically the entire ending of the game. Flying with Zelda to fight Ganondorf in the sky was a pretty beautiful moment. Even though Zelda has no sense of self anymore, she's still there with Link at the end to fight this damn son of a bitch, and it was amazing. The music definitely helped as well. And then, Rauru and Sonia show up, and together with Link, they reverse the effects of the stone on Zelda, freeing her from being a dragon, and you dive to catch her. And that moment, where you're desperately diving through the sky to catch her, is so amazing. And then, Zelda's lullaby kicks in as you get close, and holy crap, this moment is probably my favorite moment across any Zelda game. When Zelda's lullaby kicked in, goddamn, they should have called this game Tears of fucking Me, because I could not stop the waterworks. It feels like they manufactured this scene specifically to make me cry. The music alone can get that reaction out of me. Maybe you could say it's an ass pull, the Zelda became a person again, and they did this scene to artificially create an emotional moment, but I don't care, it worked on me, damn it. And then Link had no emotion in the following scene, which annoyed me, but oh well. And then Mineru's spirit passes on, and that was sad, and they show the robot falling into pieces just to make me sad again. But the ending was hopeful and bright and beautiful, and I really believe they stuck the landing. I mean, most Zelda games end pretty similarly with the future looking hopeful, but I don't know, this one felt more impactful for me. Recency bias, perhaps? Either way, so often it's hard to have a good, satisfying ending. So many stories have an amazing middle, just to fall apart at the end, but not this game. This game stuck the landing and left me with a moment that I'll remember forever. You may disagree, there's nothing that works for everyone, but for me, when the game finished, I felt satisfied and had a smile on my face. Some games just end and I'm like, okay, guess it's over. But this game left me feeling happy and content, and I think that's gotta count for something. So in conclusion, what did I think of the game? I know I bitched about a lot of things. These are problems that are either not as big as a deal as I might have made them seem, or are easily looked past. You may agree that the depth sucks, but it's kind of a minor part of the game that doesn't really matter. I only go to the depths a few times. I didn't have to collect every damn light root. I just wanted to because my brain decided that's what I wanted to do for several hours straight, because I wanted to see the entire map of the depths. It's completely unnecessary, and I probably should have just ignored the depths besides the main quest stuff. My biggest advice when playing this game is to do the things that interest you the most. If you're ever finding yourself bored by a side quest, ignore it, throw it away, and never return to it. Move on to something that gets your blood pumping. Most of the time while playing this game, I had a really fun time. There are parts that started to annoy me, but because I'm a damn fool, I didn't just ignore them and move on to something fun. I decided to continue doing the things that annoyed me. Once I had had enough of doing things I didn't want to do and returned to doing the main quest, I found myself having a hell of a good time. The dungeons are fun to do, even if some of them, like the water temple, are a letdown. And at least the stuff you do leading up to it is really fun, which could technically be considered a part of the temple experience anyway if you want to get technical. The bosses are fun, Ganondorf is awesome, and I had a damn grin on my face fighting him even when he was kicking my ass. I thought the ending was just beautiful. You could probably spend hundreds of hours just making weird and crazy shit with Ultra Hand, as people have already begun to do. And if that is what drives your passion for the game, then goddammit, go for it. Has it become my favorite Zelda game? No, I don't think anything can top the pure nostalgia power that Ocarina of Time has over me. And Ocarina of Time is just a more tightly built and focused game with truly excellent dungeons. I don't really even know where to place Tears of the Kingdom on a tier list. There's some things that bug me about the game, as you have no doubt seen from my constant bitching, but the highs are so high, and the fact that the ending got me so emotional as to count for something, that's why I call it a flawed masterpiece. Side content can be tedious and uninteresting, then you have a game like Majora's Mask where the side content is the best part of the game. The dungeons are good, but then you have a game like Ocarina of Time, or basically any other 3D Zelda game, where there are usually far more dungeons and most of them are probably better than even the best dungeon in Tears of the Kingdom. But then you have the story, and Zelda games have never really had truly amazing stories, but this game, I don't know, something about it I just love. Is it the obvious Ghibli vibes? Perhaps. There are parts of the story that drag, for sure, but if you can deliver an ending that actually works and sticks the landing, then that is something I will come to greatly appreciate and love. There's a lot to do in this game, and everyone's different. Maybe someone out there likes the stuff I disliked and didn't care much for the things that I liked. Maybe someone disliked everything, and maybe someone loved everything. Are these people wrong? No, of course not. This game has a huge amount of things you can do, and these different things will appeal to different people. I think that's both a boon and a curse. It means there's stuff in the game that people will be annoyed by, but other stuff that they will love. If you can get past the things that annoy you and just focus on the things you love, then you'll have a way better time. That's my takeaway. Tears of the Kingdom is a game where you decide what you want to do. If you want to just do the main quest, then go for it. I think that's the best content the game has to offer. If you want to do all the side content that I find dull, but you end up enjoying it, then go for it. If you just want to build funny penis machines, then go for it. Try as much as you want, and don't be afraid to ignore the things you don't find fun. So how do I even score a game like this? Well, I'm not going to say a 10 out of 10 because it's not a perfect game and there's a lot of things that I dislike, but the stuff I love, I absolutely love. So you know, despite my bitching throughout the video, I'm still giving the game a 9 out of 10. A lot of my pain could have been stopped had I had the common sense to ignore things that annoyed me and focus on what I enjoy. Thank you for watching. Let me know your thoughts on the game down below. Tell me what I missed, what you disagree with, what you agree with, anything at all. Just please try to remain civil. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon. Goodbye.